The 85mm focal length holds a special place in my heart because back when I was a portrait photographer, I really only owned two lenses, a 24-70 and an 85mm lens. So when Sony said, hey, do you want to give the 85mm G Master Mark II a shot? I said, heck yeah, baby. Let's go. So previously, the Sony 85mm lens was always a great sharp lens, but some complained about the autofocus feeling like it didn't keep up with the camera's performance. And on the G Master Mark II, the autofocus performance was improved and the overall performance of the lens just enhanced as well to make sure that we can capture things like higher resolution photo and video. And there are definitely some improvements to the way the lens transitions in video when it comes to autofocus. And I'll show you that in a moment. But when you hold this lens in the hand and you put it on a camera especially, and you have like the aperture just open up all the way, you're just like, oh mama, this feels like a solid chunk of glass. Everything about the lens feels premium. This is a well-priced lens, but still it's a premium lens coming in at 2,499 maple syrup coins, so it's not cheap, but the quality is here. And if you're a portrait photographer, I think this is well worth the price in my opinion. This lens now weighs 642 grams, so that equates to like about 12 Snickers bars, so that's 20% lighter than the previous version, and it's ever so slightly slimmer than version 1 as well, but not super noticeable if you don't have version 1 in both hands, right? Like you're not going to notice a big difference, but it is slightly slimmer, slightly less heavy. This lens looks like it's probably maybe on just a little bit of a diet. But are there compromises in image quality and performance due to the lack in size and drop in weight? The answer is no. For photography, this lens didn't miss when having a subject walk towards the camera. Not a single image was out of focus in our sequence that I shot twice too. This is really crazy performance, especially for a lens that is f1.4, and I pretty much shot everything at 1.4 for this whole shoot. When we tested out the Sony 70-200, we had at least 2 or 3 shots miss focus, and that's pretty acceptable if you're blasting off something like 20 images in a row. The hit rate is what you would expect on the 70-200, but with the 85, I'm kind of blown away because with an aperture that is so wide, your depth of field is so small. I would expect at least like, 4 images to be out of focus in like a somewhat long sequence, but that's not the case, and that was really surprising. Ready? And walk towards me. Oh, damn. I think like everyone was in focus there. One more time. Every shot here is tack sharp, and that's really crazy, but then throughout the editing process, I noticed that a number of photos from the shoot were actually catching focus on the glasses and not the eye. So even though this lens is extremely impressive, to say it's flawless would be untrue. Dropping down the aperture to f2 would likely be the way to go to just ensure that you're catching that eye in focus every single time. But throughout some of the sequences that I will show you here, it's just super impressive what the autofocus was doing. When I was pulling up the images on the computer and taking a look for the first time, I was really impressed by the level of sharpness I was seeing. I was actually kind of like smacked in the face with the level of sharpness and detail. I'm not sure if this is going to come through on YouTube because of the compression and such, but Sony did add a few elements in this G Master 2 to improve that corner-to-corner sharpness. And when shooting portraits, the level of sharpness does smack you in the face a bit. The image quality is beautiful, and I shot all these portraits on the A7 IV. I thought about using an A7R camera, but then I was like, maybe that's like overkill. And I'm kind of glad I didn't, because this lens is just very, very sharp. Sometimes lenses can be a bit too sharp though, and maybe you might want to try like a 10% diffusion filter on this lens to soften it up a bit and give you a more stylized look. We ran into this like little chihuahua, and the level of sharpness nearly brought this dog's eyes to tears. I mean, look at this. This is really wild stuff.
He's stuck
on you, Sammy. Let's see if we can
Get a shot here. Oh yeah, look at that. That's pretty funny.
Oh, that's so cute. Hey, be nice.
I'm just gonna try one more from this side here.
Hey, be nice.
Video is obviously a passion of mine, and what worries me about shooting with an 85mm is always the stepping motors on the inside of really any 85mm lens. Is it going to keep up? And if it does, will the autofocus be smooth at all? This is certainly a question I asked right away as soon as I was like looking at the lens in my hand prior to going out and shooting. So here I am hand holding the camera with active stabilization on, and if we disregard the random movements from the stabilization and just focus on the autofocus performance, this lens is as smooth as butter. Keep in mind that this was shot at f1.4. Then we tried a walking shot as well, same settings for the IBIS, and the autofocus just sticks with the subject the whole time. Of course, there's a little warping from the active stabilization, but still very impressive when it comes to autofocus, and that's what you kind of expect from the kings of autofocus. But personally, I would never have thought to do this with a G Master version 1. So I'm glad you could definitely do that and track the subject very well, even at f1.4 on the G Master version 2. So I 10 out of 10 would recommend getting this lens for portrait photography and videographers as well. I think this is a big improvement over version 1. I love the 85mm focal length because it really makes subjects look great. The 50mm is slightly too wide for headshots, even for uptight shots on actors and such, like say when you're shooting over the shoulder stuff. I really like to stick between the 85 and 100mm lens. I find that's just giving you really pleasing proportions on a subject's face. But what you could do is you can go 24-70 for that run and gun, kind of do it all, almost do pretty much anything, and then use the 85mm lens as like that one special item that comes out here and there, and it's just gonna blow you away. The bokeh is fantastic, super creamy, kind of like a Dairy Queen pumpkin pie blizzard. That's not the blizzard that you want every time you go to Dairy Queen, and that's not what you would get on every single trip. But when it comes to the end of September, you start to find yourself in line at Dairy Queen in sweatpants and a sweater, and you go, oh, the pumpkin pie blizzard, yeah, I kind of forgot about that. And then it's like reuniting with the one true love. This is a true story, by the way. And that's the 85mm focal length. This lens is just delicious, and it can be yours from Henrys.com or a Henry store near you. So my name's Anthony, and I'll see you in the next one.
Always had a way to make it work and find another route.